The Harrison family boardroom remained unchanged for 2 decades, a relic of polished mahogany and stern leather, dominated by the unyielding gaze of the grandfather's oil painting. His eyes, fixed from the canvas, seemed to follow Alexandra Harrison, the quiet middle child, a silent testament to generations of ingrained disapproval. She observed her father, Richard Harrison, as he paced, a potent symbol of his absolute dominion over Harrison Technologies, embodying the very essence of ownership over every molecule of air, every whisper of thought. And, given his absolute control, he technically did. He declared the company needed fresh blood, new investment, and new leadership for the next generation. Her older brother, Marcus, the perpetual golden boy, immediately adjusted his expensive tie, a smug smirk already etched on his face, as if the words were tailor-made for him. Her younger sister, Sophia, always immersed in her digital world, tapped her perfectly manicured nails against her tablet, feigning diligent note-taking. Alexandra remained still, her own meticulously prepared proposal, heavy with months of meticulous work, lying unopened before her, a silent promise of disruption. This was it. The moment she'd been waiting for, the opening she'd been meticulously crafting, the crack in the facade she intended to shatter. Richard, pausing for dramatic effect, announced the opening of company shares. Family only, of course, he clarified, his gaze sweeping over his children. But you'll need to bring something to the table. We're talking serious investment. 7 figures minimum. Marcus, with a theatrical flourish, raised his hand as if they were still squabbling over crayons in kindergarten. I've already liquidated my tech stocks, Dad. I'm ready to put in $2 million. Richard's face lit up, a rare, genuine smile gracing his lips. Excellent, Marcus. That's the kind of initiative we need. Sophia, not to be outdone, jumped in, her voice dripping with calculated enthusiasm. James and I have discussed it. We can match that from our hedge fund returns. Richard clapped his hands together, his gaze resting proudly on his 2 favored children. Perfect. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Real money, real commitment. Then, inevitably, all eyes turned to Alexandra. The middle child. The quiet one. The one who'd supposedly walked away from the family business 5 years ago to find herself. At least, that's how they so condescendingly described her strategic retreat. She cleared her throat, the sound barely audible in the suddenly hushed room. I'd like to present a proposal for modernizing our supply chain. Richard, with a dismissive wave of his hand, cut her off mid-sentence, his patience clearly wearing thin. And Alex, we need actual capital, not ideas. How much can you invest? Alexandra met his gaze steadily, her resolve unyielding, a quiet fire burning in her eyes. My current liquid assets are around $800,000. A wave of poorly concealed snickers rippled through the room, a cruel symphony of dismissal. Marcus actually rolled his eyes, a blatant display of contempt. Oh, sweetie, Sophia cooed, her voice laced with the fakest sympathy imaginable. This is a big kid's game. Maybe sit this one out. Richard's face, which had momentarily softened with a flicker of hope, hardened again. We need someone with actual money to invest, Alexandra, not whatever you've scraped together from your little consulting work. They didn't know. They couldn't even begin to fathom the other $50 million in assets she'd quietly accumulated through shrewd, relentless investment, or the intricate negotiations she'd been meticulously conducting for months with Summit Industries, Harrison Tech's biggest, most formidable competitor. She simply nodded, gathered her unopened folder, the weight of her unseen power a palpable presence, and stood up, the chair scraping softly against the polished floor. I understand. Thankfully for the opportunity. Alex, Richard called out as she reached the door, his voice tinged with a patronizing pity, maybe in a few years, when you've built up some real wealth. She closed the door quietly behind her, a faint click echoing the closing of a chapter, and the quiet opening of a new, far more consequential one. The air outside the boardroom felt lighter, freer, yet charged with the electricity of imminent change. Alexandra walked with a new sense of purpose, her steps measured, deliberate, each one a silent promise of what was to come. The sting of their dismissal was not a wound, but a fuel, igniting a fire that had long smoldered beneath the surface. She hailed a car, the city lights beginning to glimmer as dusk approached, and made her way to her true domain, a place where her power was not questioned, but commanded. The stage was set. 2 weeks later, Alexandra sat in her real office. Not the stuffy, tradition-bound boardroom of Harrison Technologies, but the sleek, contemporary top floor of a gleaming downtown high-rise, a testament to modern ambition and unbridled success. Multiple screens before her displayed a symphony of real-time financial data and breaking news feeds, a kaleidoscope of information she consumed with practiced ease. The headline, a bold, triumphant scroll across each monitor, burned into her vision, a prophecy fulfilled. Breaking, Summit Industries announces new leadership. Her phone, a silent sentinel until now, erupted in a cacophony of urgent vibrations. First Marcus, then Sophia, then a relentless stream of notifications from bewildered family members and frantic business contacts. She ignored them all, her focus laser-sharp on the live feed from Harrison Technologies' lobby security camera. It was amazing, truly, the kind of access you could secure when you were in the final stages of acquiring a company's main competitor, a company you had quietly been dismantling from the inside out for years. Richard Harrison entered, his usual morning coffee clutched in his hand, a beacon of his unchanging routine, a symbol of a world about to be irrevocably altered. He paused at the reception desk to check messages, his gaze idly drifting up to the lobby TV, where the story was playing out in real time, a slow-motion catastrophe unfolding before his very eyes. Alexandra watched, a phantom presence in their world, as her professional headshot, confident, poised, filled the screen, followed by the momentous, earth-shattering announcement. Summit Industries proudly announces new CEO and majority shareholder, Alexandra Harrison. The coffee cup, a fragile symbol of his crumbling world, slipped from his grasp, shattering with a deafening clatter on the pristine marble floor. The sound, amplified by the silent, luxurious lobby, was a symphony of his demise. His face, a canvas of shifting emotions, went from florid red to ashen white, then back to a mottled red, as he fumbled frantically for his phone, his fingers clumsy with shock and disbelief. Alexandra let his call go to voicemail, a small, satisfying victory, a subtle turning of the knife. Then, with a practiced flick of her wrist, she opened her laptop, the screen illuminating her face with an almost ethereal glow, and began typing an email to Summit's board. Her fingers dancing across the keyboard with a purpose born of years of quiet determination, years of planning, years of waiting. "Ladies and gentlemen," she wrote, her words precise and deliberate, each one a calculated strike. As discussed in our previous meetings, Phase 1 of our expansion plan begins today. The first target, Harrison Technologies' main semiconductor contract with Maxwell Corporation. They won't see us coming. They never did. She paused, a faint smile playing on her lips, a predator's grin. Best regards, Alexandra Harrison, CEO, Summit Industries. She hit send, the click of the button of final, irrevocable declaration, a point of no return, and leaned back in her chair, surveying the sprawling city skyline, a vast empire now within her grasp. In the distance, like a silent, defiant monument, stood Harrison Technologies' headquarters, the very building she'd grown up dreaming of running someday. Now, she had something infinitely better, something far more powerful. The power to show them, with undeniable clarity, exactly what they had so carelessly dismissed, what they had so arrogantly ignored. Her phone buzzed again, a new message from Marcus, brimming with indignant fury. "What the hell, Alex? Summit, are you trying to destroy this family? She typed back, her fingers flying across the screen, a smirk playing on her lips, her words cutting like a razor. No, dear brother. I'm trying to show it what real money looks like. Then, with a decisive movement, she turned off her phone, severing the immediate connection to their panic, a brief respite before the next wave of their unraveling, and called her assistant. Sarah, please inform Summit's PR team. We're ready for phase 2. And get me Maxwell Corp's CEO on the line. Right away, Miss Harrison. Oh, Sarah's voice crackled through the intercom, a hint of amusement in her tone, a shared secret between them, and your father is in the lobby. He's quite insistent about seeing you. Alexandra smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile, a rare flash of pure triumph. Tell security to escort him out, Sarah. Remind him that as CEO of a competing company, he'll need to schedule any meetings through proper channels. And if he resists, take his picture. We'll need it for the restraining order I'll be filing this afternoon. She stood up, straightening her blazer, the very same one she'd worn to that ignominious family meeting 2 weeks ago. The one they had barely noticed, too consumed with counting their own paltry fortunes to see that she had more, far more, than all of them combined, a quiet force they had tragically underestimated. Her office phone lit up, a beacon signaling the next step, the next conquest. Maxwell Corp CEO, line 1 for you, Miss Harrison. She picked up the receiver, her voice calm, clear, and brimming with the quiet authority of someone whose moment had finally arrived, whose destiny was now unfolding before her. John, Alexandra Harrison here. Let's talk about your future with Summit Industries. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't just success. It's success they never saw coming, a tsunami of triumph. And she was just getting started, the opening act of a masterpiece of vengeance. You won't believe what happens next as the walls of their empire begin to crumble. The next morning, the financial world collectively held its breath, witnessing a dramatic shift in power. Summit Industries stock soared a staggering 12% higher, a testament to the seismic shift Alexandra had orchestrated, sending shockwaves through the market. Harrison Technologies, on the other hand, plummeted a terrifying 8% in the first hour of trading, a precipitous descent into uncertainty, a clear indicator of their sudden vulnerability. Alexandra observed both numbers from the serene quiet of her private conference room, a subtle sense of satisfaction unfurling within her, a silent celebration of her carefully executed plan, while reviewing the Maxwell Corp contract. Now exclusively Summit's, thanks to a late-night negotiation that had skillfully, mercilessly, cut Harrison Tech out of their biggest, most lucrative semiconductor deal. A quiet triumph, a strategic coup that redefined the industry landscape. Her assistant's voice, a familiar comfort, came through the intercom. Miss Harrison, your sister Sophia is here. She doesn't have an appointment, but she's quite insistent. Let her in, Sarah, Alexandra replied, a mischievous glint in her eye, a flicker of anticipation for the coming storm. This should be interesting. She closed her laptop, anticipating the tempest, ready to weather the coming emotional onslaught. Sophia burst through the door, her expensive designer heels clicking a furious rhythm on the polished floor, her rage barely contained, her composure hanging by a thread, a woman on the verge of unraveling. What are you doing, Alex? First Summit, now Maxwell. Are you trying to destroy everything Dad built? Alexandra gestured to the plush leather chair across from her, a silent invitation to the inevitable. Please sit. You're making my security team nervous. Screw your security team. Sophia retorted, but she sat nonetheless, her trembling hands smoothing the rich silk of her blouse, a futile attempt to regain control, to project an air of composure she clearly did not possess. Marcus is having a meltdown. Dad hasn't slept. Mom keeps crying about family loyalty. Fascinating, Alexandra murmured, pulling up a confidential document on her tablet, a digital dagger poised to strike, the ultimate weapon in her arsenal of truths. Speaking of loyalty, let's discuss Harrison Tech's new partnership with Vision Electronics, the one you and Marcus pushed through last quarter. Sophia froze, her eyes widening in disbelief, a sudden realization dawning on her face. How do you know about that? Oh, Sophia, Alexandra said, leaning forward, her voice soft but laced with steel, chillingly calm. I know everything. Including the fact that Vision is 3 months away from bankruptcy. Their financials are a house of cards, a meticulously constructed facade, a lie waiting to collapse, and you tied our family company to them because their CEO promised you and Marcus personal kickbacks, a desperate grab for illicit gain. Her carefully constructed facade cracked. That's not. I have the offshore account records, Alexandra interjected smoothly, turning the tablet towards her, the damning evidence undeniable, irrefutable. Would you like to see them? The color drained from Sophia's face, leaving it ashen and drawn, as if all the blood had suddenly rushed from her veins. You can't prove anything. Actually, I can, Alexandra countered, her voice chillingly calm, a cold, hard fact. Summit's forensic accounting team is very thorough. In fact, they're preparing a full report for the SEC right now, a comprehensive exposé of your deceit. You wouldn't dare. We're family. Sophia hissed, desperation creeping into her voice, a desperate plea for mercy. Family? Alexandra leaned forward, her gaze piercing, unwavering, a laser focus of suppressed anger. Was it family when you and Marcus convinced Dad I wasn't worth including in strategy meetings? When you mocked my little consulting work while I was quietly building a billion-dollar portfolio, meticulously crafting my future? When you systematically pushed me out of every decision because you thought I wasn't smart enough, rich enough, or ruthless enough to play in your league, to stand on equal footing with you? Sophia shot up so abruptly her chair toppled backward with a resounding crash, the sound echoing her shattered composure. What do you want? Her voice was a ragged whisper, thin with fear and desperation. Simple, Alexandra stated, her terms clear and non-negotiable, etched in stone. Harrison Tech cuts all ties with Vision Electronics immediately. You and Marcus resign from the board, citing personal reasons, a graceful exit that saves you from utter humiliation. In return, those financial records never see the light of day. They disappear as if they never existed. That's blackmail. Sophia spluttered, her face contorted in disbelief, unable to grasp the magnitude of her predicament. No, dear sister, Alexandra corrected, a faint smile playing on her lips, a cold, calculating amusement. That's business. She opened her laptop again, the screen a silent countdown, a digital hourglass. You have until 5 p.m. to decide. After that, the SEC gets an anonymous tip, and the dominoes start to fall, one by one, irrevocably. Dad will never agree to this. Sophia protested, her voice rising, verging on a scream. Dad doesn't have a choice. Summit now owns 30% of Harrison Tech's supplier network. One phone call from me, and your production lines stop tomorrow, a complete shutdown. She stared at Alexandra, truly seeing her for the first time, a flicker of fear in her eyes, a dawning realization of the formidable opponent before her. Who are you? I am the sister you should have been paying attention to, Alexandra replied, a quiet intensity in her voice, a promise of retribution fulfilled. She pressed the intercom. Sarah, please show Ms. Harrison out. And send in my M&A team. We have a busy afternoon ahead. As Sophia stumbled out, a broken woman, Alexandra felt a profound sense of vindication. The journey had been long, fraught with silent battles and hidden triumphs, but the moment of reckoning had arrived. Don't miss the shocking climax, as the architect of their downfall prepares to unveil her final, devastating move. After Sophia's ignominious departure, Alexandra gazed at a digital copy of the family photo from the previous Christmas, a stark reminder of their collective obliviousness, while she meticulously planned her intricate web of retribution. In the photo, she was relegated to the background, quiet, observant, perpetually planning, while they, front and center, were loud, confident, completely oblivious to the seismic shift she was about to unleash upon their carefully constructed world. Marcus's text message, brimming with indignant fury, pleaded with her to stop. "Whatever you're planning, stop. We can talk about this," it read. His words were a desperate plea, a futile attempt to regain control. Alexandra's fingers flew across the screen, her response swift and devoid of emotion, her words cutting like a razor. "Like you talked about the Vision Electronics deal? Check your email. You have 4 hours. Then, with a click that echoed with finality, she opened the file marked Phase 3, the next chapter in her strategic masterpiece, readying the next wave of Summit's relentless expansion. This was not just revenge. It was a profound demonstration of who they had underestimated, a brutal lesson in consequences. The afternoon news, she knew, would soon announce Summit's latest strategic acquisition, a small but crucial chip manufacturer that supplied a staggering 40% of Harrison Tech's components. She envisioned Richard's reaction during his usual 3 p.m. coffee break, a mirror of his morning shock, the look of profound disbelief that would once again contort his features. The quiet ones, she reflected, often possess the most powerful voices that resonate with the weight of unseen battles, waiting for the perfect moment to be heard. And her moment was fast approaching, a crescendo of power and control. At precisely 4:58 p.m., a mere 2 minutes before her self-imposed ultimatum expired, the resignations arrived in her inbox. First Marcus, then Sophia, both citing personal reasons for their abrupt departure from Harrison Technologies' board. Alexandra forwarded them to her legal team without a single comment, her victory silent but profound, a quiet triumph that resonated with years of suppressed ambition. Then came the call she had anticipated, the one that truly signaled the beginning of the end for their old order, the final collapse of their outdated reign. "Alexandra," Richard's voice was rough, tired, a pale shadow of its former commanding tone, utterly devoid of its usual authority. "We need to talk. My office, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Bring Mom." She ended the call without a reply, leaving him to contemplate the depths of his new reality. That night, alone in the opulent silence of her penthouse, Alexandra reviewed old family videos, a self-imposed ritual of remembrance and motivation. Christmas mornings, where her siblings' lavish gifts dominated the frame, a testament to their privileged existence, while she, the diligent outlier, quietly opened books about business strategy, devouring knowledge like air, fueling her hidden ambition. Board meetings where her raised hand, brimming with insights, was routinely ignored, her voice silenced before it could even be heard, her contributions dismissed as trivial. The day she graduated top of her class from business school, a monumental achievement that should have been celebrated, only for them all to leave early because Marcus had a more important client dinner, a blatant display of their indifference. These recordings were not for nostalgia, but for unwavering motivation, for a constant, visceral reminder of the slights and dismissals that had fueled her ascent, sharpening her resolve, forging her into the formidable force she had become. At 8:55 a.m. the next day, her parents arrived. Her mother, Eleanor, looked like she'd aged a decade overnight, her face etched with worry lines, her eyes red-rimmed and swollen from unshed tears. Richard, usually a paragon of commanding stride, shuffled, his shoulders slumped, his aura of invincibility utterly shattered, a defeated man. They sat across from her, two people who had once seemed larger than life, towering figures in her world, embodying unchecked authority. Now they looked small, almost insignificant, against the breathtaking backdrop of floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city she now commanded, a city that was now, in essence, her playground. "The Vision Electronics deal is dead," Richard said, Without preamble, his voice devoid of its usual authority, a monotone of resignation. "And your siblings have resigned." "Yes, I know," Alexandra replied calmly, her voice even, devoid of triumph or malice, merely stating a fact. She then pulled up a devastating presentation onto the massive wall screen, a visual indictment of their children's corruption. "Now, let's discuss Harrison Technologies' future. Or rather, our future." Eleanor's voice cracked, a fragile tremor, as she exclaimed, "Our future? Alex, you're destroying us." "No, Mom," Alexandra corrected, her voice firm, resolute, yet with an undertone of unwavering certainty. "I'm saving you from them." She clicked to the first slide, detailed documentation of Marcus and Sophia's elaborate kickback scheme. Their faces, in candid photographs with shifty executives, appeared alongside damning financial records. They were bleeding the company dry. Vision Electronics was just the start. "I have irrefutable evidence of at least 6 other deals where they took personal payments to push through contracts that explicitly hurt Harrison Tech, contracts that served their greed at the expense of this company's health." Richard's face turned ashen, a ghostly pallor, disbelief etched upon it, as if the ground had opened beneath him. "That's impossible. We raised them better." "Did you?" Alexandra challenged, her gaze unwavering, a cold, hard stare. "You raised them to believe money and power were everything. That the only way to win was to step on others, to disregard ethics, to abandon integrity. The only difference is, they turned those ruthless lessons against you too, against your own company, against their own family." She clicked through more slides, offshore accounts, secret meetings, meticulously forged documents, a damning trail of evidence. With each new revelation, her parents seemed to shrink further into their plush chairs, their power and authority evaporating before her eyes, replaced by a crushing weight of shame and disillusionment. Eleanor, weeping softly, her voice barely a whisper, asked why Alexandra was showing them this instead of simply letting the SEC handle it. "Because," Alexandra explained, her voice softening just imperceptibly, a hint of something akin to sentimentality, "despite everything, Harrison Technologies is still Grandpa's legacy. And unlike my dear siblings, I actually care about that." Richard looked up, a glimmer of something, perhaps hope, perhaps desperation, in his eyes. "What are you suggesting?" "A merger," Alexandra stated, displaying the final, climactic slide. "Summit Industries and Harrison Technologies, combined forces. A powerful, symbiotic union, a vision of unprecedented market dominance. Your groundbreaking technology, my unparalleled market position. Together, we could dominate the industry for the next 50 years, a true titan." Richard accused her of wanting to take over their company. "No, Dad," she corrected, her voice firm and unyielding. "I want to save it, but this time, on my terms." She meticulously laid out the details, precise and unyielding. A fair stock exchange, guaranteed positions for loyal, competent employees, and a new, ironclad board structure that would protect both companies' interests, ensuring transparency and accountability, preventing any repeat of the recent treachery. Richard's voice was quiet, almost defeated, as he asked what would happen if they refused. "Then tomorrow morning," Alexandra replied, her voice chillingly calm, "these documents go public. Harrison Tech stock crashes to nothing. The SEC launches a full-scale investigation, a scandal of epic proportions, and everything Grandpa built ends in ignominy and ruin, a complete and utter collapse." Eleanor began to sob, her shoulders shaking uncontrollably. Richard merely stared at his hands, his knuckles white, a picture of utter defeat. "You have until noon to decide." As she stood up, signaling the end of the meeting, the unspoken deadline hanging heavy in the air, she added, "Oh, and one more thing." Eleanor looked confused, wiping her tears. "What painting?" "Grandpa's portrait from the boardroom," Alexandra clarified, a faint, triumphant smile touching her lips, a final, symbolic act of reclamation. The one that watched me being ignored for 20 long years. I think it's time he had a new view. At exactly 11:58 a.m., 2 minutes before her ultimatum expired, they signed the merger agreement. A new era had begun, marked by the triumph of quiet ambition over ingrained arrogance. By 1 p.m., the news had swept across every major financial network, a seismic announcement reverberating across the globe, dominating headlines: historic merger, Summit and Harrison Technologies. That evening, as maintenance crews carefully hung Grandpa's formidable portrait in her expansive, sun-drenched office, a powerful symbol of a dynasty redefined, a legacy reappropriated, Alexandra received 3 new text messages. From Sophia, a bitter accusation of ruin. I hope you're happy. You've ruined everything. From Marcus, a defiant promise that resonated with impotent rage. This isn't over, Alex. Not by a long shot. From Eleanor, a tearful, belated apology. We never saw you. I'm so sorry. Alexandra responded only to her mother, her words a quiet affirmation of her ultimate goal. It's not about being seen anymore. It's about being heard. And now, everyone's listening. The silence that followed was not empty, but filled with the weight of her unprecedented success. 1 month later, she stood in the new, gleaming combined boardroom of Summit Harrison Technologies. The company's stock had soared, rising a phenomenal 40% since the merger, a testament to her strategic genius and unwavering vision. Our market share had doubled, solidifying our position as an industry titan, a force to be reckoned with. And her siblings? Last she heard, they were futilely attempting to start a venture capital firm, a pathetic endeavor doomed to fail. Without access to Harrison Tech's vast resources or their former powerful connections, they weren't having much success. Their fall from grace was complete, a dramatic and public undoing. Her assistant, Sarah, knocked softly on the door, a respectful pause before entry. Miss Harrison, the board is ready for your first meeting as CEO. Alexandra straightened her blazer, a silent symbol of her hard-won authority, and picked up her presentation folder, the very same one she had tried to show them years ago, now a symbol of validation. Her father was also there, Sarah added, requesting to observe. Put him in the back, Sarah, she instructed, her voice calm, unwavering, devoid of malice, yet firm in its assertion of power. He can watch. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't just proving them wrong, it's proving yourself right, beyond any shadow of a doubt, in the most spectacular way imaginable. And as she walked into that magnificent boardroom, past Grandpa's portrait now hanging proudly behind her CEO chair, a silent, approving witness to her triumph, she knew she had achieved precisely that.